All right, here we are. Thank y'all for coming to the Delgado reading series, our main event of the semester. I'm glad y'all are here. We have someone close to Moose Jackson the poet today who's going to introduce him. Eddie O, please come on up.
All right, good afternoon, y'all. Let's see, this should be good right here. Okay, first I want to give my gratitude to Professor Joanna for putting this event together and giving me the opportunity to come up here to introduce a dear friend of mine, Moose. I'm going to start with his bio. Raymond Moose Jackson is a writer and a poet whose work has been applied to diverse settings that include live theater, festivals, literary programs, and the experimental improvisation poetry band, Liquid Land. Moose has performed throughout New Orleans in venues ranging from the CAC, the French Market in Prospect One, the Mudlark Theater, numerous music venues, the New Orleans Public Library, and the Music Box Village, as well as touring domestically and abroad. A recipient of an artist residency at A Studio in the Woods, Moose collaborated in 2009 with ArtSpot Productions and Mondo, Bizarro to write the environmental play Loup Garou, winner of the Best OffBeat Award for Best New Work. And I actually got to experience that play. It was awesome. It was beautiful. And he is also the co-writer with Joanna Russo on the 2013 outdoor production Cry You One, a narrative that travels to the site of disappearing wetlands. His recent collection of poems, Dreaming in the Bone Boat, was published this spring by UNO Press. Other publications include Return to Yakni Chitto, the Houma Migrations, and Bomb magazine. Among many literary, musical, and theatrical projects and collaborations, Moose has additionally worked with Dakota Sioux poet Strong Buffalo at the headwaters of the Mississippi River in Minnesota on the completion of a series of ceremony rituals meant to heal the river and carry the intentions of Gulf Coast residents back to its source with a symbolic release of blessed water. The primary drive of his work is about restoring a sense of sacred relationship between people and the living world that they are a part of. I've been knowing Moose for over the last 20 years, and he's one of the best people I know by far. And although we call him Moose, he's really a big teddy bear. And he articulates the New Orleans culture beautifully in his work, better than anybody that I know. And I'm just happy to introduce Moose. Moose, come on out here and do what you do best.
All right. Hello. Okay, I'm gonna raise up this microphone just a little bit. Little height differential here. Very, very happy to be here with you. This actually is a dream come true for me. It's something that I've hoped for a long time, working on poetry in the way that I have, to get to be at a place where people are learning about it and to be able to talk about what it is to do this work and how it affects us as we do it. I guess it's probably helpful, first off, before I begin, I'm sure that you all agree with me that it's important for us to remember that the land that we're on is land that other people have lived on before us. Chitimacha, Takapa, Ishak, Tunica, a lot of different people have lived here before us, and we are just trying to stay in connection with that. And that's part of, for me, what poetry is constantly staying in connection with those others who are not completely gone. They're still here with us in some way. And one of the ways that I think about writing poetry is to open myself up to be a voice for those who do not have a voice. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and read you a few poems. This is from my recently published book, Dreaming in the Bone Boat. This is called Spiders Are Writers. Spiders, if you don't know about it, in many cultures around the world, we're the progenitors of written language, where alphabets come from. Yet, even in our children's story, Charlotte's Web, Charlotte is writing in her web, and we see those letters happening, and some cultures believe that that's where our writing comes from, as well as a lot of our stories. There are spiders everywhere tonight. Grandma spiders and trickster spiders and spiders padding their own egg sacs, soon to be airborne on silk sailing ships. There are spiders dripping from poets' chins and pork pie brims. You've got to get past the inhibitions of 8 articulated hairy legs and eyeballs black, unblinking, the twisting language of DNA strands, Indra's net, whole galaxies caught in the dewdrops. Spiders know a lot of secrets. Slip a silver coin in the slot and whisper to the egrets, I remind you, lest you forget, I read the spider's alphabet. This is called Boy at the Smokehouse Door. They call on you in the middle of the night to build the fire, to feed it. The blood of trees, those upright denizens, breathe the smoke as an offering. The reason why is the hogs, soaking in the blood and the brine. I saw them laid out on metal trays. I saw them stacked on smokehouse rack. They look an awful lot like us. Feel the human weight of them. Touch their teeth. Touch a dead eye. These too were our people. Look, I'll serve you some whiskey and brisket. Don't ask me to talk about it. I'm busy asking the universe why we gotta kill to live. All this business, the successful entrepreneurs, the technocrat class, will meet here at the Blackened Bar to take in the smoke and spin old vinyl. Watch the traffic dwindle and consider the sacrifice, compassionate butchers that we are. The beautiful bones. And again called to the river bend with you who listens to all the beautiful bones, who counts every rib and vertebra not yet claimed by springtime flood, by wake and tide, or the cruel blade of the bush hog on the Batcher side of the levee. Now who won't let go? The alter egos we build while dropping the lesser blows of some magnificent story. If we can resist our addiction to definition, resist the urge to tell it, live it. Let the full being song of the cicadas wrapped in praise of the universe mellow with the afternoon blues left from last night's revelry, love's latest casualty, this full circle reality. These bones still have some homes. Send me again to the riverbend to collect them. Y'all are making me nervous. Silent. It's like I may as well just go over there to read poems to Buddy Bolden. It's called the Gardener's Prayer. They call this a wild craft, what we've turned our hands to in these endangered lands where love makes a stand. Love is an indigenous species. Slow down. Try to understand the whispers in the seedbed, the harmony of this garden. How we nurture and are nurtured by, how we unite ourselves to what's grown without trying to own. There is a sacred design here. Our roots have intertwined and spread into rhizomatic relationships, the green spark of love bursting upwards in a virgin forest of fellow dreamers. We have to learn to hold hands. We cannot help but impact one another. The long lineage that we belong to and are taking from and are adding to is the song of gardeners who've come before. The medicine wheel. Come and kneel. Let our work be a prayer. Let the fruit of what we grow here be food to our souls, food to all the souls who lend hands tending to this holy work. There is a sacred design here. It falls to us to steward this love in the sanctuary of the wild, to honor relations by tending the garden.
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed this process of putting this book together. I was during the second lockdown from COVID when the editor at UNO Press reached out to me and said, we would like a book from you. And I just happened to be sitting down trying to comb through past 20 years worth of journals, keep myself sane. And so it was a process. As I pulled the poems from the journals, I typed them on my typewriter, which is about 100 years old. And that's what he got, is a stack of hand-typed poems, you know, the impression of the letters in the thin wood pulp, this artifact that you could touch. He was so impressed by that he read through all the poems by candlelight. And that to me is part of the magic of this sort of thing, that what we're doing here is tapping into something much older. And before we were able to write words down, we had to memorize them and speak them out to our community. And so in that tradition, I'd like to recite a few of them for you and let you see what a difference it is when the poem comes out of your bones. For those of you who are not yet of the drinking age, this might not make a lot of sense to you, but this comes from a night of enjoying the music of New Orleans. It was a crescent moon Monday night, 11:04 to be precise, when I left the house to glide like shadow down hollowed streets, still hearkening to blues time, ancestral rhythms, native tones. I was hunting the itch I've always known, where kismet bleeds from saxophone and beatified yats pray to bottles of bud, and the last bastion bar still bulwarked on Burgundy, a ship pitched against shifting shore. You realize, once you're in there, that the wailing is essential, as is the smoke, thick as rue. A pot of ham hock, red beans, and rockabilly hairdos declaiming the buxom and garrulous beauty of our hard-working dudes and darlings. Never mind the fact that we are mostly immigrants from a country less kind, plied by boozing to loosen the knees, and whatever was once good about America blooms anew as the room fills with dirty dancing. It was only last night, some 40 years ago. The mood was just right, and Sam Cooke would sure know, because we was wide awake dreaming. You pulled close, and what was broken in us found healing in the howling of wolves. It was that close, yes. We cut some notches in our leather belts for every lost milepost of soul, knowing that some hungry nothing was hunting our sanctuary, muscling into the ragged, crepuscular bohemian paradise. It was only for a moment anyways, though we meant it for an eternity. We didn't know, we should have guessed. That languid southern atmosphere was just the storm god holding his breath. We should have known, felt in our bones. Yes, the wailing is essential, as is the flying bee, which bites and gives warning that the Iceman is coming soon, so put your funky butts on the floor and shake that thing for a pork chop. Abandon yourselves to it. By the time you get out, the knowing of the place will have set up shop inside you. And whatever meaning is left is in the rolling piano, is in the shaking of the floor. It's a blue neon light that we're gonna have to follow well into the by and by. God will want an accounting of this night. You roll up your sleeves, you tell him, mister, wherever we finally go, the wailing would still be essential.
Yeah.
Raise this up just a little bit. Sorry. This is a tragic poem. This is about a drummer who was shot shortly after Katrina. You know, there was a lot of, after the storm, so many people lost their homes, their neighborhoods, trying to come back to the city and finding themselves put into different neighborhoods, and created an incredible amount of friction. And some young folks were trying to shoot at his son and got him instead. His name was Gennaro Shavers. He was the snare drum player for the Hot 8 brass band. It's called Second Line. I am waiting. In the cracked street, sinking into the asphalt, like the broken houses all around. And the faces in this tableau are a million shades of coffee, all streaked with tears. I am growing roots here. The mist is fine and pulls us a little further down. A trumpet barks impatiently, but the preacher still rumbles behind red bricks. It is electric out here, where tragedy upon tragedy is spread out over the rooftops in blue sheets. All eyes are trained upon the door. The trumpet bleats. A last complaint causes a white dove to materialize there, and he is announced. His mourners are screaming the only song appropriate to strike courage into the heart of the band. And his casket rolls out on waves of gold, tones before open throats, raised hands. Here is another of our own passing in the streets before us. Watch the story of his life being danced out from the house where he was born, through his tragedies and victories and the empty projects, and hear it in the beat of some kid who magically, just for today, hits that snare drum just like him. And follow it until his final rest. And dance out as much of his morning as you can today, because brothers and sisters, another second line is on the way. Yeah, part of what this craft is for me is, I remember when I was evacuating from Katrina, I had been working with a professional photographer and learning photography, and I had my camera. It was a Canon 81. I made sure I packed my camera. It's like, we're going on an adventure. I don't know where we're gonna go. I'm gonna snap photos of it. And as we were leaving the city, got up on the I-10, I turned back to snap a picture of the city, and the camera broke. It was the end of it. And I kind of took that as a sign that my camera was the pen. And my way of taking pictures and documenting these things was through poetry. So, and when I came back, I definitely didn't want to join the ranks of those who are taking photos of the destruction. So this has been my way of documenting living in this place. And the ways, obviously it's very, very subjective. It's more of a story about how you as an individual change and develop by the things that you're witnessing. And your character gets shown by the things that you notice. You find yourself in all kinds of different situations. If you slow down enough and you have your paper and pen with you, you can catch some good stuff. One of the biggest challenges I set for myself annually is to try and write a Mardi Gras poem, because who can wrap their heads around that craziness? This is called The Coronation, Ash Wednesday, 2015. 1, this would not be the first time I tried to describe the arc of this alchemy. One thing I know, a thing has to be able to die in order to truly live. I don't remember who it was sitting at the fire pit talking about Mayan sacrifices, but when that stranger fell to earth, the witches on the roofline went silent, and I knew the night was over. So ended the first cycle, loss. 2, back into the womb room, rune wound, for another transformation, chasing the dawn awash in the detritus we gathered from flood. What exactly was the parable of our quagmire? You have to be able to take your hope and hatred and hold them in the same hand and honestly see them as one. And this will make you a better people. Follow this up with service to your fellow beings. Sweep the floor, take out the trash. Sleep is for those who have finished their work. We all sleep in the end, but some of us burn long tapers, sitting vigil on the inner darkness. So ends the second cycle, purification. 3, the next day went to the wolves, lean and agile in their intuitions, tactical in their ritual. Even their play had an element of danger. Right relation is relevant. The water will keep you close to duty. Imbalance brings a duppy armed with a volley of angry rocks. The normals have their prognostic proclamations, predictive predilection parameters. I don't claim to have Jesus on the main line, but we beat their fearsome odds and made harbor at the flash of the storm, thus completing the cycle of rewilding. 4, on Tuesday morning, we rolled away the stone and were surprised to find a tin king, robust and ready for coronation, and he danced through all the pain and pageantry of the people and reflected back to the world all of its color and true light. Love is the name of this leg of the journey. The demons that guard its gate are formidable indeed, terrible in the mind, unbearable in a warrior's heart. It has been a long dance with our shadows. We've braved each dawn, the biting cold, and let the bell of this isle distract us with gold and music. But our course is plumb and true. Every tribulation of navigation was selected and tested and subjected to the scrutiny of a non-dualistic tribunal. Coronation happened in the intersection of Frenchman Street and Charters, simple as a kiss, then paraded to the river, where we all lay down our burdens and give our medicine to the people. This next poem has got me into trouble a few times. It's called I Want to Make Love to You. I want to make love to you. I want to rest the 4 mounds of my fingertips between your breasts. over your heart, and watch your eyes grow sharp as you feel the new movement within. I want to smell your skin, under your arms, on the backs of your calves, blending with the fragrance of ferns. I want you to feel me yearn, even if it's only so that one human in one world entire can understand me, the tragic passion, the ardent ferocity, which threatens to tear out of me like a giant ripping his guts from the center of earth. I want to make love to you, to kiss your earlobe with just the very tip of my tongue, the tiny lips that live there and send spiraling gibbous ribbons of night questing through your blood in search of nether chakras. I want to make love to you and forget to breathe and growl and let the wolf come bounding into the front yard of my mind. I want to make love to you and feel the strength of my body lifting you in easy dancing waves. I want to make love to you like a sacred temple harp, running roughened hands over the ark of our covenant, coaxing moans from the groaning bed springs, virtuoso duet in our little unsanctioned symphony. I want to make love to you and send care packages of life juice to 99 forgotten goddesses. I want to make love to you and repair the tear in the holy fabric of lust. I want to make love to you and watch the scars that we've gathered as our harvest in this unjust world heal and vanish before our unblinking eyes. I want to make love to you and silence the whispering voices for a few golden hours. I want to make love to you like a holy fire. I want to make love to you with religious thirst. I want to make love to you and burst into tears and sob and fall asleep on your chest like a child who has never known sorrow or hunger or fear, only safety and the fullness of a mindless peace and rest. This poem, I was in Thailand for a while. I was studying Thai massage and I spent some time in a monastery. When I was studying massage, I got to live in a village. And the people of that village, their tribe is the Lahu tribe. It's called Now Start Again. In Lahu village, I am up before the sun, before the teacher, before the self, the villagers, Farang. I am alone on the mountain platform to swallow this silver sliver of moon. It is not meditation, it is worship. And now I have to start again. In Lahu village, I am quiet, I am distant. My heart is with the dogs howling while the mayor of the coconut bar barks out today's announcements. Ahep! In Lahu village, I sit on the mat. I am no longer hands nor the back receiving this technique. I am the one who swallowed the moon, the dreamer awake behind the dream. In Lahu village, there is a man with only 3 teeth who plucks a pretty mean Thai banjo blues. For 3,000 years, only one song, papaya banana cooking, no problem. Beyond that, we understand each other like quiet men. Now start again. I think I'll do one more, and then if you like, we can take a few questions, and then maybe if there's still time, I'll do another one or two. I think this is probably my favorite poem in the book, and it's the last poem. It's called Breaking and Entering. The moon tried to sneak in my bathroom window between the razors and the orange pomade. Tried to sneak in roses and firecrackers of all things with a momentous and unjaded heart. She didn't expect the crystal transmission of her message to be so well received. She thought dancing on the bar would make her a pariah. She was so used to love being a one-way street, a parlor trick, like swallowing light bulbs in the dark. I heard them tinkling in her belly, heard the commotion in the bathroom. I admit she has dangerous timing, traipsing coastal reaches whilst the tide is coming in, consuming her taboos in public, befriending the ragged people, even the likes of Widdershin's wolves seeking refuge in enemy territory. She didn't know the heart of wolves, how long they tended to love, how they carried their wounds a lifetime in silence, recording the moon's minutest meanings. I have been here many seasons. The moon, though ever-changing in her aspect, is a creature of habit after all. The sea betrays her waking emotion, the unwitting pull of her orbit. Even a starfish could tell she'd been drinking. I too have my cycles, have burst naked through the canopy. Love without folly is a suburban enterprise. We are sacred monsters. It is our duty to haunt the wastelands, wage war on safe conventions. Moon is not so foreign to me. We shine with the same perplexing light, glinting off the razors, calling for the blood. End of transmission. Thanks. Thought I'd open the floor up to y'all if you have any questions, fellow writers out there, or just people who want to know how I got to be so weird.
How did you learn to care about nature so much?
It's a good question. I think starts obviously as a child. I think I grew up in Detroit in the 70s, or at least that's where I started my childhood. And Detroit was pretty bombed out at that point. You know, we'd had a lot of fires in the late 60s and a lot of violence. And it was a rough place to be. And I found myself gravitating more towards animals than people. So I can't really speak exactly to that. Just the feeling of understanding, kinship, simple, without all the ideas that we mix into it. Later on, I was growing up, I was a teenager, I was a very devout teenager. I was an altar boy at our local Catholic church. I would ride into town 7 miles early in the morning so I could serve Mass before going to school, and went into the military and was seriously considering the priesthood during that period of time, and then something cracked in me and I lost my faith. I could go into long detail about that, but long story short, I came away from that feeling like I didn't know anything anymore about the world, except that I knew that I believed that nature is intrinsically good, and that by focusing on being in right relationship to nature, then I would do better for myself. After that emotional and psychological schism with that particular tradition, I went deeper into connecting with nature. I started hopping freight trains and hitchhiking, and I ended up getting involved with some direct action. Basically, people were protesting the destruction of some 4,000-year-old trees in Oregon by climbing up in the trees and living up in them. And I joined them, and I went up, became a tree sitter, and lived in some trees for several months. And I would like to say that if you think that a 4,000-year-old plant isn't intelligent, you are not intelligent. They are older than any civilization that we have. They're part of our heritage as humans on this earth, as entities, as spirits on this earth. We lose them, we lose something very, very important. So it was, to me, a continuation of the vows that I took going into the military to protect our country. That's part of our country. Those beings deserve to live. Whoever thinks that they're more valuable dead than they are alive is dead on the inside. So I guess that's part of it. And then while I was up in those trees, I thought long and hard about how we came to this norm in our society, cultural belief that these trees are more valuable dead than alive. And I realized that the only thing that made that so was culture. Culture being nothing more than what a bunch of people think and do. And that if I wanted to continue to protect the trees and other forms of life, that I should try to figure out how to be good at shifting culture. So that was when I made the decision to move to a city and to learn to be a better communicator, which is part of what has driven me into poetry and theater, and taking the poetry to places outside of its traditional, or at least its modern traditional realms, and back into places like the wilderness, outdoors, in small gatherings, campfires, ways in which this craft can intersect with us and shift our thoughts and our hearts. And that's, sorry, going on and on.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
I have a comment/compliment. You want some compliments?
Amen. Hit it.
And maybe you could segue that into just like talking a little bit about, like, let that inspire you to talk about the stuff that I'm going to talk about. One, the second line poem, I really liked how patient you were with the pauses, and it really, in a weird, this is a crazy compliment, but it was, I feel like the first time I've heard somebody perform a piece of poetry where I think you're performing the spaces that you've written in there, and it made sense. Like there was a sense that there were different lengths of pauses and they meant different things, and so I could actually see what it might look like on the page, almost like the reverse of trying to read something and try to see it in performance. And the second part I noticed is, like, I read your bio, and clearly that your theater background is showing up because you take on a persona in reading without it being affected or performative. It seems like a genuine, like, persona reading, as opposed to that overly, I'm putting something on it, but it means nothing reading that I can't stand personally. So how do you approach, we want to talk about, like, approaching the performance of poetry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was also very astute for you to notice that. One of the things that made me choose poetry as a way of working was when I left the military and I started hopping freight trains and hitchhiking around the country. I did have the habit of journaling. I was into reading, and I read some poetry, but I didn't fancy myself a poet. But I got really sick of the laundry list of, and then I did this, and then I did that, and then I did this, and then I met this person, and then we talked about this, and this was the ideas that I had, and then I did this, and then I did that. I was like, no, it's boring, and it takes way too long. How can I get to the essence of that experience? So poetry does this thing where it draws, it like squeezes out essence from several things and mixes them together into a powerful cocktail, which the audience member might not understand what I was talking about. Like that poem, The Coronation, you might not have really actually visualize too much of it in your head because I had abstracted a lot of things in there, and so it was, but you could go to your own place in your head with that, and you'd get some part of what was important about it in you. For me, each time that I read a poem like that, it is like a zip file. Like I've taken all of this experience and I've shrunk it down into this potent, tight little package. And as I unfold it, if I slow down enough, if I remember that what I'm doing here is bringing a gift of myself to y'all, I start to relive the experience. And that poem, the second line poem specifically, like every time I read that poem, I feel the misty rain, and I see where I was, and I feel the people, and I hear their voices, and I hear the brass band, and I remember my sorrow. And it transports me. So what's happening, what I think you're experiencing is maybe what in theater they would call method acting, where you put in yourself, like you're reliving the event. Maybe that's not good for you, ultimately, on some level, certain things perhaps. Maybe on another level it is good for you. But whatever it is, it's authentic. It's coming from a place of actual experience, and it's hard when you get up in front of people and you're performing for them, your adrenaline's rushing. It's hard to get to a place where you strip yourself down and make yourself vulnerable. But that's what I try to remind myself to do every time I come up in front of some people.
I'm a writer myself. I mean, I write short stories and scripts. What would you recommend to anyone who wants to get into literature?
So Matthew just asked what I recommend to people who want to get into poetry. First recommendation is carry a pen and paper with you everywhere you go. If you can't do your work if you don't have your tools. A very simple thing to do if you want to get into it is to sit down and relax enough wherever you are and to start to notice things and to start to write them down. And you know, if you're into the idea of poetry, just simply ask yourself, how can you be poetic? One really helpful thing, I don't have a whole lot of training in poetry, just started doing it pretty much, but I did get some advice here and there, and one piece of advice that was really good is each line of poetry should make it like a poem itself. If you could get each line to land like a whole poem, you're on the track. Yeah, and so once you start writing, I think just get some practice turning your observations into something, like being there, observing others. Let it be about them, because ultimately it's still going to be about you, because it's about the things that you've noticed, and that speaks to your character, that speaks to your depth of vision. But because you're pushing that towards others, it becomes more universal. It becomes about what's human for all of us, and that's what I think brings people in. They really respond to the feeling that this person has articulated something that I myself have felt.
Hey.
Anything else? Anybody else?
What's one thing you would recommend for us all to do to be better stewards of our environment?
Slow down. That moment when we had a global slowdown, it was pretty amazing. I don't know if you got outside during that time, but I remember taking a bike ride across the city with a friend when there was no cars. We were riding for hours and hadn't seen a car, and it was glorious. And by dark, we ended up in the quarter, and we were on Durban Street, And like all the lights were still on Bourbon Street, and all the like strip joints flashing their signs and stuff like that. And there was a big old stork standing like this in front of Big Daddy's, you know? And I stopped my bike and looked at him, and he looked at me and he went, ah! I'm like, sorry bro, I think they closed. And he's like, ah! I flew up into the distance, and I don't know, that, like, the nature coming back in that way was glorious for me. Also, Mardi Gras, I think it was 2020. I remember Mardi Gras morning coming down to the quarter, and there was so much helicopters and smoke, and it was, I couldn't handle it. It was awful. And I took a hard left and I walked down to the industrial canal, and I slipped down by the water surface, and I just slowed down. I just kind of meditated for 5 hours. And a bunch of pelicans gathered around me, and they were just hanging with me, and other creatures were coming out. And finally, my fear and PTSD moment was passing, and I realized how important of a lesson that was, that when the world is really just raging and going into a nightmare place for you, you can just slow down. And if you slow down that much, change your own frequency, nature can get in and come close to you and approach you, and you can be held in that relationship again. You want to hear one more poem?
Yes.
You want one out of the book, or you want a memorized poem?
Memorize.
Let's see. Love poem?
Yeah.
All right. This dusty old chestnut. Hold it back if you can. This river, this flood, this junk stream of bicycle parts and road signs, fortune cookie graffiti, dog-eared furniture, punk rock records, pieces of broken hearts, broken lives. How many lies have we told ourselves that maybe in a new town with new skills, a new haircut, we could be happy? We keep bumping into it like moths around a burning bulb, like meteor shower, like gold dust streams. We yearn and fizzle, but we never see the light. And all I ever wanted to do was hold you, but your heart's already caught the last train out, and I throw mine wrapped in red tissue after it like a fool and run empty the other way down the tracks. People see me and think I'm running away, but that's only because they move too slow and I've already passed them, and they don't know what I'm running towards. You see, love moves pretty fast on the ground, and you gotta get up pretty early in the morning if you want to catch it. Well, your love moved like a red streak, reflected in streetcars, reflected in puddles, darting, swerving like it was drunk, though we both knew it hadn't had a drop. And what kind of fool isn't gonna stop for a love like that? But sometimes I get caught in the flood, juxtaposed in the junk, attracted to some rust-encrusted bloom of post-industrial beauty. Sadness is gorgeous, seductive, elusive, draws me in with a promise of insight and epiphany. A glimpse into the mysteries of night lures me, lulls me into a sleight of hand stupor till my red star passes out of sight, and I slump drunk on despair before a lower Decatur dive, or pass out in my bunk but still aware of your beauty. And we both know the hard roads, and we've walked a few side by side, and if the tide comes in and one of us must take another, well, I'm no less grace forever stepping once with you. You can be angry, you can wish me into a unicorn, but I will not be drunk. I will not be eroded. I'll still be drunk, and I'll still be in love with you. We all have dreams, all dreams are different. The beauty of this one is we still wake up in each other's arms. Boy, I flubbed that, come on, y'all. I gotta do one more to cover up that mess. All right, maybe this one, or this one. This is a poem that I wrote about the morning before I went up into the trees to become a tree sitter. It's called Coyote and White Crane. It would not be the first time the puppeteers had employed a brown face to do their dirty work, gutting the public trust. Whilst in the desert, a new Islamic state has recruits from Normandy and Great Britain swinging severe swords against their own oppressive culture, attempting to decapitate the white man's burden. I met an American sniper before my job in the forest began. He was of the Mondo clan, riddled with red scars. He handed me a service knife, asking me to cut him. It was my road partner who did the job. While I pressure wrapped the arterial jet, White Crane dipped 2 fingers and dressed my cheeks in his blood, declaring he would take from me a ghillie, a snatch of camouflage, the last of my service issue. He would rob me of my burden. And to my heart, I would take his. What this country and white skin has taken from his land and people. Coyote watched curiously on the other side of the tracks. These lunatics, the two-leggeds, confusing identities, swapping skins. Thanks very much. I brought some books if anybody's interested. I think this is probably a good time to close it down. I know some of y'all gotta get back to class. So thank you very much for opening your ears and your hearts, and be brave, keep writing.